From Keanu Reeves adamant about getting Constantine 2 made, to Angelina Jolie making In the Land of Blood and Honey despite getting death threats. These are actors that fought to get their own movies made. If you too are upset about Constantine 2 not being made yet, please don't blame poor Keanu Reeves. Not only is the actor aware of all the fan interest in the sequel, he wants to reprise the role of John Constantine himself too. Reeves has been very open about his desire to revisit the popular character in the past, but despite several years of rumors and false starts, Constantine 2 just can't seem to get off the ground. This hasn't been for Keanu's lack of trying, though. The actor even went on The Tonight Show and spoke about the current status of the ill-fated sequel. He put it rather bluntly when he said he's tried time and time again to make the sequel happen, since he's more than happy to get into that character again, but unfortunately, his efforts alone just aren't enough to get the ground rolling on a sequel. As frustrating as that sounds, it's just not as easy to make a second movie happen as one might think. This is especially true for cases dealing with lots of intellectual red tape and where rights to the movie might not be easy to acquire. Even so, given Reeves and the fans are so interested in a sequel, it's odd that Constantine 2 still hasn't happened. Similarly, given that Will Ferrell and director Adam McKay managed to once turn Anchorman, a much-loved comedy movie, into a sequel, it isn't that hard to imagine that they could do it again with Step Brothers. Even the movie's other lead actor, John C. Reilly, has been very vocal about being open to the idea of getting up to more immature comedic antics. In November 2018, there was talk on Good Morning America about a concept being put together for the sequel of Step Brothers, with Reilly really hoping that it would all work out. To hear the actor being so passionate and publicly talk about his potential sequel initially seemed like a promising sign for another Reilly-Ferrell reunion. But in the years that followed, there's been no update on a second Step Brothers installment. Rumors say that part of the problem has to do with the incredibly busy schedules of everyone involved, including the director, who's apparently moved on from doing bro comedies to Oscar-worthy dramas. Will we have to settle and simply revisit the original Step Brothers? Sad. Speaking of much-awaited sequels, while a reunion for Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan might not be official yet, Curtis did tease everyone by claiming, "Of course it's going to happen." By it, she's referring to a sequel of Freaky Friday 2, and if that finally happens, I'm going to need a minute to process this. She also appeared on The View and revealed that she had jotted down some ideas for the plot. Now, this is a rather significant update since the Halloween star has been teasing the fans for a while now, with her subtle but not subtle Freaky Friday sequel hints. Earlier, she posted a throwback picture of herself and Lohan on Instagram with the caption, "It's Friday, I'm just saying, freaky fingers crossed." It doesn't get any freakier than that. Now, did you know that the infamous John Carter was initially supposed to be a movie trilogy? Among those who were eager to make another movie was the film's leading hero, Taylor Kitsch. But the follow-up movies never happened because the original movie was a total box office bomb. A few weeks after it came out, Kitsch made it very clear that he was really proud of the work he'd done in the film and was desperate to return to do a second John Carter. Even several years later, Kitsch continued to fight for a sequel, claiming how amazing the screenplay for the proposed second installment was. Unfortunately, the actor's will alone wasn't enough to make that a reality. With John Carter's legendary misfire at the box office, the movie lost hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and all notions of a sequel were quickly scrapped, despite Kitsch's over-the-top enthusiasm. Maybe Kitsch should have taken a page out of Stallone's book and refused to give up. Sylvester Stallone famously wrote the script for Rocky in nearly 20 hours straight. But since he was relatively a newcomer to Hollywood during the mid-70s, his pitch about the rags-to-riches champion boxer didn't sit well with several producers. He shopped it around the studios for years and was repeatedly turned down every single time, until United Artists was finally convinced and decided to give him a chance. After getting the go-ahead, Stallone was to be paid $125,000 for the movie with the following condition: he wouldn't star in the film. United was less than enthusiastic about casting a broke, relatively unknown actor for the lead role. Instead of Stallone, producers wanted to cast Ryan O'Neal, Burt Reynolds, or James Caan, who were all major stars at the time. But Stallone was adamant. At 30 years old, with only $100 to his name, he turned down their generous offer for the rights to Rocky. He was determined to make the film he wrote the way he wanted, with himself in the lead. He went up against major Hollywood heavyweights to fight his way into the ring of fame and stardom. He was made subsequent offers of $250,000 and $325,000, but he refused to accept until they let him star as the lead. The studio finally compromised, but only ended up paying him $35,000 and a percentage of the profits. Lucky for him, Rocky cost about $1 million to make, but grossed over $2 million on its release. The sequels were even better, grossing over $1 billion. Now, Stallone's isn't the only story about resilience. At the peak of his spiritual bankruptcy while struggling with drug and alcohol abuse, actor Mel Gibson considered hurling himself out the window. Instead, he thankfully turned to the Bible, which inspired him to direct his new movie, The Passion of the Christ. For years, he approached studios to finance the Passion Project and find someone who'd be willing to put up a reasonable budget. Most of the studios were uncomfortable with the idea of being associated with a religious and a rather controversial film. So when Gibson realized no one would touch his beloved project with a 10-foot pole, he decided to bet it all on himself. Naturally, this was a huge risk, and Mel ended up investing $30 million of his own money to produce the film. He then had to put in an additional $15 million to market the movie, bringing the total personal investment to a whopping $45 million. That was the total cost of his fight. But as fate would have it, The Passion of the Christ went on to become a massive box office success. The movie made about $600 million at the box office, and Gibson's personal investment ended up paying off big time. Joining Gibson and Stallone is Deadpool actor Ryan Reynolds. The comic book hero's film adaptation has been Reynolds' passion project for the better part of his life. 11 long years to be exact. It's a movie that he had been writing with Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese for over 5 years. Reynolds claims that he spent 10 years trying to get Deadpool made, and it was absolutely awful. Apparently, the studio didn't really believe in it, and Reynolds' team got 47 separate rejection letters. It took a lot more work to get the movie off the ground than anyone might have realized, but he never gave up and was even forced to use rather innovative and rather unorthodox marketing methods, like leaking test footage, to finally get it greenlit from Hollywood executives. Even then, it became a mammoth task to film. Compared to other comic book movies, they had practically no budget to make the movie and ended up making every dollar count. Reynolds finally drove home on the final day of production in the now iconic red and black Deadpool suit after having poured his heart and soul into the project. Angelina Jolie too had to fight to bring a passion project to life. She wrote and directed In the Land of Blood and Honey, a movie based on the Bosnian War and its terrible impact. At the time, several studios just flat out refused to back the film, mostly because it had such a heavy subject matter. But Jolie persisted, adamant that the film needed to be made to bring forward the true nature of the ongoing conflict. Ultimately, the movie was released, but not without controversy. Since the film opened in Sarajevo, Jolie and several other Serbian cast members received rather terrifying death threats. One of them even had their car windows smashed in, while another had their phone hacked. Can you imagine? Jolie even gave the cast the option to leave the region if they wanted, where In the Land of Blood and Honey was shown for the first time, but none of them accepted her offer. Was her struggle to get the film made worth it? I'll let you guys decide. From Angelina Jolie making In the Land of Blood and Honey despite getting death threats, to Keanu Reeves adamant about getting Constantine 2 made, those were actors that fought to get their own movies made.